Hi, everybody. Welcome to my Connect podcast, where we discuss the teaching that one of our team have brought in relation to the parables of Jesus. And we've had a great time so far. Today, we're looking at the parable of the banquet. And we are so honored to hear from Martin Steele, who, in my opinion, is one of the best Bible teachers in the world. Great insight, clarity, and revelation. And today will be no exception. So let's get straight into the parable, and then we're going to have a chat.
So today I'm going to be sharing with you around one of the most familiar and most well-known parables, the parable of the great banquet. It's found in Luke chapter 14, verses 15 through to 24. The context is that Jesus has been at this Pharisee's house with others, and he's spoken to them all about humility, about honor, about caring for the disadvantaged. And he uses an example of hosting a meal. And then one of those who are at the table, we read in verse 15, heard it and said to Jesus, "Blessed is the man who will eat in the feast in the kingdom of God." And Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, 'I've just brought a field. I must go and see it, so please excuse me.' Another said, 'I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen. I'm on my way to go and try them out. Please excuse me.' And still another said, 'I've just got married, so I can't come.' The servant came back, reported this to his master, and then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, 'Go quickly into the streets, into the alleys of the town, and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, the lame.' 'Sir,' the servant said, 'what you have ordered has been done, but there's still room.' And then the master told his servant, 'Go out into the roads and the country lanes and compel them to come in, so that my house will be full. But I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get to taste of my banquet.'" One of the things that we know about parables is they're like multifaceted gems. It's not like there's one single dimension. It's like prophetic words in the Old Testament. Sometimes there's an immediate fulfillment and a latter fulfillment. With parables, you can spin that diamond and Jesus is teaching many different elements. For example, this well-known parable of the great banquet, we normally ascribe to simply being about salvation. Get out and preach the gospel. Go into the alleyways, the streets, bring them in. But that's only one of a number of different facets. Theologians will tell you that there is also, with this allegorical illustration of actually Israel and the Gentiles, that it's not just the initial invitation to God's people, but now the gospel is for the nations and for all people types. But first and foremost, this parable is actually more about kingdom life than it even is about evangelism. You see, he was responding to the comment that the Pharisee had made, saying, "Blessed is the one who will feast in the kingdom of God." And it was based on this belief of someone participating in the life and the world that the Messiah establishes on his return. You see, Jewish Pharisees in the first century believed that the Messianic kingdom would actually be a physical kingdom, earthly, a glorious kingdom, but would be established in Jerusalem. A descendant of David would lead it, and they expected the Messiah to be this political and military leader who would overthrow the Roman oppression, bring peace to this world, and restore Israel's sovereignty. So the Pharisee wasn't so much asking the question about heaven or afterlife. He was saying how blessed it will be for those who will be participating in the new kingdom that the Messiah will bring. And so Jesus' response wasn't simply one dimension. He started to talk about not only those who would be invited to join the kingdom, but those who were already in it. And that's what I want to look at today, this facet of the parable. But actually, we can't read this as simply being about others. This is actually to be read about ourselves, about how do we respond to Christ and the kingdom's invitation to be seated at the table, part of the kingdom, and engaging every day in kingdom life. And if I had a subtitle for this teaching today for our Connect, it would be "No Excuse." No excuses.
You know, let's stop there. It's amazing. Even the whole intro sets a great truth that it's important we understand. You know, over the first few podcasts we've had and over the first few connects we've had feedback. I don't agree with that take on it, and I'm not sure that's right. And I love the energy and the passion and the interest that's been involved and evoked, because what Pastor Martin is saying is so true, that these are like gems. There's every angle you look at it, it's slightly different, and there's layers of revelation. So in some of the parables, in fact, most of them, there's multiple levels of revelation you can get out of it. So just because your angle is different to someone else's angle doesn't make it right or wrong. There might be a more primary application for sure. So there is truth in there, but there's layers of truth. So that's what that culture did. They debated it. And in this case, Martin's already unpacked that it's not just about salvation and reaching the lost, but it's about the Jews and the Gentiles, and specifically now kingdom life. And even though they were thinking about the banquet, Jesus has got something in mind, and he's talking about excuses. So what a great setup. Let's go to the guts of it right now.
You know, what's amazing about this parable, of course, is we're told that this invitation goes out to those already in relationship with this great man. There's a very common parallel parable about the wedding feast that illustrates a similar thing. A king had a banquet for his son's wedding and invited. In this case, it's a great man inviting people to come and participate, to be seated at the table, to be part of this inner central core of relationship. And the first person who receives the invitation, as you know, responds by going, "Oh, well, this is wonderful, but there's a problem. I can't come. Because you see, I've just bought this field and I've got to go and look at it." The next person who receives the invitation in a similar way goes, "Oh, imagine at the time, really honored to have an invitation to come and be part of the kingdom life and sit at the table of this great man and be participating." But he says, I can't come because I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen.
I mean, I bought land and I can't come to the banquet because I got to look at it. I mean, the land's not going anywhere. This guy, I've got to try them out. He just bought them. It's his for life. I mean, the excuses are quite comical.
And I need to go and try them out. And then the third one, and I think this person was the dullest of them all, he uses this excuse. He goes, "Oh, I can't come. I've just got married."
Well, no explanation needed here. He didn't even have to say what the reason is. He just said, "I got married."
You know, the reality is it's not the fact that they could not come. It's that they actually would not come. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem with this is not that in their natural appetite to be involved in something so wonderful that there was no interest. It was more the fact that they wrongly perceived 3 of these areas of life, actually the main 3 spheres of life, as obstacles and hindrances of being involved in the kingdom, rather than actually seeing them what they really should have been seen for, opportunities. Let me explain it to you this way. Pretty much our life is made up of these 3 main spheres. What we have, what we do, and who we do it with. It really is about this aspect of our possessions, our vocation, and our relationships. And these were the 3 indications we have in these invitations that people made judgments on whether they should or could be involved. The first one, it was all about possessions. "Oh, I can't become part of this kingdom table and that aspect because, you see, I've just bought something I have to go and look at." The second one, "Oh, I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen." In those days, if you had 1 yoke of oxen, you had your own business. 5 yoke, it was like you had this multiple expanding business. And he's like, no, I'd love to be part of it, but I can't. You see, I have this vocation, I have this calling, I have this business. I've got to go and try them out. And then the third person who, of course, limited everything by saying, "Look, it's just not the time. You see, this stage of my life now, I've just got married, so I can't be involved." And I want to suggest to you that the sad thing about the story, and actually the positive lesson we can transform out of this, is that these 3 supposed hindrances or obstacles or impediments should never have been seen that way. They were, in fact, opportunities for kingdom life. Let's take the scenario. The first person receives the invitation. "Oh, wow, what an honor. The king, this great man, this person throwing this banquet has invited me as someone in relationship, a subject, to come and be part of the table and make decisions and engage and relate. Oh, this is wonderful. It couldn't be better timing. I've just bought a field. Let's go and see what's growing in the field, because perhaps there's something in there I can use to contribute to the banquet." You see, it's how you look at it. Was having to go to the field an impediment or an opportunity? What was in the field that could add to kingdom life? I think the same as with the second person. Even more so. They come to him and they say, "Hey, come to this amazing banquet. Come and be part of kingdom life." And the response is, "Oh, I don't think I can. You see, I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen. I need to try them out." But the other way of thinking about it could have been, "Oh, what a wonderful opportunity. I've got to try these yoke of oxen out. And I'm sure there's others invited to the kingdom banquet as well. I can use my oxen to transport people to and from the banquet." You see, it's how we look at it. And I think, of course, the third one is obvious as well. Like, really, think about it. You're this person, you've just got married. You get an invitation to an amazing event and to this wonderful celebration. You don't just look at it and go, "Oh, I can't come. I just got married." The default setting should be, "Well, I got my +1. I'm sure this invitation isn't just for me. I'm now married." I mean, come on, every guy would love to be able to show off to the mother-in-law. "See, look who your daughter married. I get invitations to special events. I get invitation to king's banquets, etc., etc." What I'm saying is simply this. Every one of those three seemingly impediments and obstacles and hindrances that these people foresaw, they're like, the thing about my possessions is I've got to go and take control of it and look at it and observe it. But that's obsession. The person who had the opportunity with their vocation, their calling, to use their giftings and their graces and their work and their habits and their practices and their hobbies and their work career, all of those things could have been seen as ways to actually use to serve the kingdom and to be engaged in kingdom life. I love that literal practical example, seeing that person not being so obsessed with their own self-promotion or ambition, but wow, God fits within this. God can fit within my vocation. And of course, the aspect of relationship. The people God gives us, the ones we join our lives to, our partners, our children, our friends, they're not obstacles to kingdom life that stop us being involved. That's the greatest invitation.
Great point. The whole concept of, does everything in your life become a hindrance to the kingdom of God in your world, or is it an opportunity? But you could even dial it back a bit and just look at it on the surface and go, you know what? This invitation had nothing to do with their possession, vocation, or relationships. Nowhere in the invitation was it implicit that, okay, if you come, you have to sell your land. If you come, you have to give up your vocation. If you come, you have to divorce your wife or leave your relationships. Not at all. So this wasn't even about utilizing your possessions, vocations, or relationships for the kingdom, which I amen 1,000% Pastor Martin's point. But let's just dial it back and go, what was in their mentality? Because it clearly wasn't that I'm going to lose my possession or my vocation or my relationship. That was not even what was being asked. There's other parts where Jesus said, sell all you have and follow me. If you don't hate your father and mother and wife, etc. There are other segments where it's like, what I'm bringing, I'm going to have to lose. This was just an invitation. So what was in their mentality that made them use it as an excuse or a hindrance instead of an opportunity? I would say it's probably the issue of busyness. Busyness is not, none of the three thought, oh no, if I go, I'm going to lose my wife, I'm going to lose my property, or I'm going to lose my oxen. They just thought, this is going to so consume me, I have a time crunch. And in our world, we have a time crunch. Everyone's busy. But remember what busy is. Busy is just a terrible default. I've even stopped using the word busy. I like the word full. How's your week? Oh, it's full. It just sounds more organized, because busy just sounds like there's a lot on and I'm chaotically, reacting to it all. Nothing. One of my pet peeves is like when we have a meeting and someone walks in late. Late is okay, but when they walk in late with this furrowed brow, oh man, and you're like, and they've got that furrowed look to imply, I'm late because I'm busy. That just means you're disorganized. So busyness is a real crutch that we can fall into. And, we have information more accessible than ever before. We have conveniences more available. So busyness isn't a real thing. And be careful when you use busy as an excuse. Would you like to come to church? I'm busy. Connect? I'm busy. Alpha? I'm busy. Heaven? I'm busy. No, just before you just default with I'm busy, think through every gift that God has given you. Let busyness not be the hindrance. In this case, we're not even talking sacrifice. We're talking about just utilizing the blessing of God. Your relationships are a blessing from God. Your vocation is a blessing from God. Your properties and your possessions are a blessing from God. Let's just look at it as God not even demanding them. Just stop using the busyness attached to them as the reason. So, and then he talks about at the next level, opportunity versus hindrance. That's another level. Because I love what Pastor Martin is saying. He's saying, listen, beyond just using busyness as an excuse, how about think it through the lens of, I could utilize my possessions for the kingdom. I could utilize my vocation for the kingdom. I could utilize, that is another level. So whether you're the entry level of busyness or the next level of how do I use what God's given me for his purpose, that is the right way to do it. And I'll remind you that in the parable, it said that when the servant said that, Master, these were the excuses they gave. It says the master became angry. This is something we need to remember. God's nature isn't anger. His nature is love. But he does get angry. Angry is his temporary response to the state of man. It's not his nature. But there's a few times God gets angry. This is one of them. And if the master represents God, which it does, God's anger. So think about this next time you want to make an excuse. It actually makes God angry. It doesn't make God impressed. Oh, you have an excuse. Oh, wow. No, it makes him angry. When Moses was asked to go and do the impossible, and he started with excuses like, I stutter, I can't speak. The Bible says God got angry because I think God's anger to our excuses is because it is so ludicrous to think we can submit a hindrance to the eternal creator of the universe who's asking us to do something. Whether it's an invitation to a banquet, whether it's, set my people free, whatever God's, he doesn't even address the stuttering of Moses. He doesn't even address the excuses because excuses literally make God angry. So think about that before you give an excuse to God next time. But let's finish the rest of this. And then I've got another thought I've got cooking, but I want to hear what Martin has to say.
We actually get to do life together and bring people on the journey. I remember when my wife and I were called to work in Eastern Europe in missions for many years. And our children were young, 9 and 7 years of age. And all the advice some were giving us was, Martin, it's probably not the best time. The children are young. And they saw it as an impediment. We saw it as opportunity. Our children got to engage in different nations of the world, get a heart for the kingdom, to see what's happening around the world, and even in some low socioeconomic areas, to get compassion for nations. And look where they are today. They're blessed because of it.
Wow. Firstly, how good does Martin look with hair? Secondly, Roz, his wife, is stunning. And they're two cute kids who I actually know, especially Amy, who's our lead pastor in Auckland, New Zealand. What a perspective that his family wasn't an impediment to mission. It was actually an opportunity to graft them into something. And I love what he said. If you really honestly think about it, every one of us has a story like that. I mean, for me, the story is not that dissimilar because of our life. But in your life, in your Connect group, in your world, the shift to see it from this is something that's pulling my time to this is now part of what God has given me for the kingdom. I talk to some mums, they're about to have their first child, and it's like the whole world has to stop. But, billions of people have been born. It's not like it's the first time you're going to give birth. Yet I know it's a major thing, it's a shift. But it's the mentality that says, you know what? My life is about eternity. All of a sudden, possessions, vocation, and family have eternal potential rather than just being the reason we are busy. But what a great story. Let's finish it off.
So I want to finish by giving you 3 things to talk about, because I reckon everyone listening today, you've got those core areas of your life, your relationships, your possessions, what you have, what God's given you to steward, and your vocation, and they're all not obstacles but opportunities. I'd like you to talk about these 3 things. Firstly, what are some ways or areas of kingdom life you feel called to and could see yourself serving in, both within the church and from the church outside?
Great question. What are some ways or areas of kingdom life you feel called to and you can see yourself serving in? And pay attention to your vocation, pay attention to your possessions and the people you're connected with as clues or signposts of maybe this. Look at who I've been blessed with, or look at what I've been blessed with, or look at what I get to do. And I think that's a great way to answer the question.
Secondly, what are some practical ways you could see yourself utilizing the things you have, the things you do, and those you do it with to serve Christ and his kingdom?
And I love the fact that this is not only serve the body and the household of faith, which the Bible talks about, but just in life. Practically speaking, everybody who's in a Connect group, we'd love you to become a carrier. What's a carrier? Someone who actually serves the body. Not everyone is carrying the vision. Most of us are being carried by the vision, with the sacrifices of a few. But imagine if everybody, in a practical way, utilize. You don't have to go, well, I'm a dentist, so let me see if there's a mission trip to do with teeth. No, you could just be helping us be an usher. We have CEOs and high-level people who serve in the car park, who are just willing to shake hands or just make coffee, or there's so many things. You go to your city, your church, and you look at it and you think, wow, this looks pretty well done. It's so many wonderful people who have said yes and decided not to make excuses and turn their gift, their vocation and their relationships into. I remember I tell the story before, but my dad, when I was 9 or 10, and he was on the ushering team. He was a chartered accountant. He was a business guy, but he went to help stack chairs. He was in his early 40s, and I was about 10, 11, and he would drag me along. And I'm like, Dad, I'm the only 10-year-old here. He goes, just keep doing what I'm doing. And I remember thinking, wow, instead of seeing me as a hindrance as to why he couldn't serve, he took his 10-year-old son to serve. Clearly didn't hurt me, but what a wonderful perspective of how you could practically utilize the things you have, the things you do, and the things you do, and those you do it with to serve Christ.
And finally, what is one thing that you may have been challenged today to see now as a vehicle or opportunity to serve Christ rather than an obstacle or a hindrance? Enjoy your discussions. Have a wonderful time.
Okay, great teaching, and 3 really good questions to reflect on. I want to close today's podcast with a thought around why. Let's go a bit deeper into why we use what God has blessed us with, the gifts, the talents, the people, the possessions, skills. Why do we use that as a hindrance? What's the mentality that causes some to automatically default to my life is so full and I can't serve the King and his kingdom? I think it's one word: compartmentalization. Compartmentalization. I am an anti-compartmentalizationalist. If that's not a word, I apologize. It's a very long word if it is. Compartments are not evil. They are designed, like if you go to a chest of drawers, to keep your socks in one, your t-shirts in one, and all of that. So compartments are designed to keep areas of your life separate. But when you have a compartmentalized mindset about life, you actually keep all the areas of your life separate. And I understand the need to do that because, you've got to focus in the areas that you are responsible for. But the mentality taken to an extreme can actually cause you to fragment your life, because what compartments does is it keeps your priorities separate, and then it makes indirectly each priority an enemy of the other. So in an obvious situation, if I'm spending time with my wife, my sons, you don't care about us. Spending time with one son, the other one, you don't care about me. If you're, spending time at church, man, the church is more important than your family. Spending time with your friends, your friends are more important than the church. And you're constantly making an enemy. Don't allow that mentality to be in you. I don't know anyone who can live a big life and live a compartmentalized life. I don't mean be organized. Have a diary, have days, you do things, that's fine. But the mentality is, I'm all of those things. See, the problem is we all carry multiple hats. I'm a dad, I'm a father, I'm a pastor, I'm a leader, I'm a businessman, I'm a whatever, and I'm a son. So I'm this clown that keeps putting new hats on depending on who I'm with. What an exhausting way to live. I'd say burn all the hats and come under one large covering, and God becomes involved in every area. Do you realize God shouldn't be a compartment? See, when they're all invited to the kingdom, it's not like the kingdom is, oh man, I got building, now I've got God. I've got possessions, I've got vocation, now I've got God. How do I juggle the two? Yes, from a time perspective, there's practicalities around that. But think of it with a bigger mindset. If I'm at work, I'm still a husband, I'm still a father. Yes, I've got to focus and I've got to do what I've got to do, but I can't go, bad luck, wait till our day off, wait till I spend time with. I've got to constantly carry all the way. What's that? Me not allowing things to be so rigidly locked into compartments. So when you think about God, I'm not suggesting in Kingdomcity or in church that has to be your be all and end all. I hope you have a life outside of church, but you cannot afford to have a life outside of God. God has to be in every compartment, and I would say smash all the compartments and allow it to be one life. That's what we've tried to do. So in my case, my vocation, the people I do life with, my family, all of those things are in the one bucket. I get it. That's not the case for everyone. I understand that. However, fight the temptation to over-compartmentalize your life, because it will make enemies out of your priorities. I'll close with this. The story of the Titanic is told about how it sunk. And again, people way smarter than me, I've just read the reports, said that one of the things that caused the ship to sink quicker was the fact that when the iceberg tore a hole in the hull, the bottom of the ship was actually so watertight into compartments. So it tore a hole and water filled one compartment of the ship. But because it was so compartmentalized, the water couldn't get to the whole ship, which would have balanced the ship out in the crisis. But because it so filled one and the others weren't touched, it tipped the ship quicker and it sunk probably faster. Regardless of the accuracy of the maritime situation that I'm referencing that was over 100 years ago, it's the same principle. The enemy can sink your ship a lot quicker if you over compartmentalize your life. Don't allow every area to be totally separate. Allow God to crash in on every area and say, Father, everything I have is yours anyway. So Lord, even with my kids, even with my marriage, even with my work, with my possessions, with my investments, Father, help me to be a good steward. And I thank you that all of this is part of the kingdom. And God, let it be something that you bless and you cause to flourish. Help me not to be the clown running around trying to juggle all my responsibilities and please every person in my life. Help me to take them on the journey, and Lord, take my whole life and let it be completely consecrated to thee. Don't make God angry with your excuse. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Great teaching, Martin. Thank you. See you next time.